As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December.
Did you kill Grace Millane?
This is Grace Millane, who recently graduated from high school and decided to go on a tourist adventure in New Zealand. She was found dead after going out on a date with a man he found on Tinder. Her last moment was recorded on CCTV camera, and nobody could see that coming. Family and friends called her on her birthday, but she never answered or messaged back. What happened to her? Who is behind her death? These are the last moments of Grace Millane in her tourist journey in Auckland, New Zealand. Grace Emmy Rose Millane was born in Essex, England in 1996 to parents David and Gillian. She was the youngest of 3 siblings, with 2 older brothers, Michael and Declan. Grace graduated from the University of Lincoln with a degree in advertising and marketing, and had saved up for a year-long backpacking tour after her graduation. Known for her compassion, she cut her long hair before the trip and donated it to the Little Princess Trust for wigs for children with cancer. In October 2018, Grace embarked on her adventure, traveling to Peru and then spending 6 weeks in South America. She enjoyed meeting fellow travelers and sharing her journey with those back home. On November 19th, 21-year-old Grace arrived in New Zealand. 11 days later, she checked into the base backpackers hostel in Auckland. On the evening of December 1st, 2018, she left the hostel to meet a Tinder date, dressed in a black dress and white shoes. Although initially Grace didn't seem too sure about meeting up, after some more talking, she and her date eventually made a plan to get some drinks. Grace met her date at Sky City, an entertainment hub with bars, restaurants, and a casino. At 7:16 p.m., they went to the Mexican cafe. The evening seemed to be going smoothly. At 8:30 p.m., they went to the Bluestone room. At one point, they were kissing together. When her date left the table, Grace messaged her friend Amina back home, saying, "I click with him so well. He's an oil manager and lives in a hotel. Just after 9:30 p.m., they left the bar arm in arm, heading down the street. The next day, December 2nd, was Grace's 22nd birthday. Her family and friends sent messages and reached out on social media, but Grace's unusual silence and her phones going straight to voicemail were alarming. Her brother Declan noted that she had been eagerly sharing details and photos of her trip, so her lack of response on her birthday was a red flag. Her worried parents contacted the Auckland police and reported her missing. On December 5th, police contacted the hostel where Grace had been staying and confirmed she hadn't returned on the night of December 1st. Detectives quickly tracked Grace's movements that evening through extensive CCTV footage, identifying the man she was with as Jesse Kempson, who was staying at the City Life Hotel in Auckland. Who is Jesse Kempson? Jesse, a 26-year-old man, was born in Wellington and had a troubled upbringing, moving frequently after his parents' separation and being raised partly by his grandparents. Known as a pathological liar, he fabricated stories about being related to a famous rugby player, dying of cancer, and being a professional softball player. His lies led to frequent evictions and job losses. On December 5th, the day she was reported missing, police had brought him in for questioning. Jesse claimed nothing unusual had happened. Their date ended with a hug, a kiss on the cheek, and plans to meet the next day. He said he tried messaging her on Tinder the following day, but noticed she had unmatched him.
Tell us about Grace.
So I was talking to Grace on Tinder.
Yeah.
We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on Saturday. And then we met at Sky City, and then we decided that we're going up to Andy's Burger Bar, which is on the first floor.
Whose idea was it to go to that particular burger place?
Me, because I didn't initially know that she was real.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of, so have you heard of catfish?
No.
So catfishing is where someone uses your profile, uses your photos and pretends to be you and then meets, and you're a completely different person.
Right.
And it's on Tinder, it's all about the way you look. And so if they use more endearing photos, you're more likely to swipe for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does meeting in a public place sort of protect you from meeting someone who's not as good looking as...
Well, there's security there. So if she wasn't who she said she was,
Yeah.
at least in my mind I'd feel safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's us.
Down there?
Yep.
Is that before or after?
That is after.
Okay. And where are you guys going now?
So she's going that way, and I'm going across the street.
Where do you walk?
I go down Queen Street. No, I go down Victoria Street, straight down to the bottom, and then hang a left, and I head towards the viaduct.
You go to the viaduct a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've kind of walked in a bit of a funny direction if you were planning to go to the viaduct.
Well, it's the direction I normally go.
Yeah. It's I mean, I'm just sort of saying, like, if you were planning to go to the viaduct.
I normally go down Queen Street and then cross at the bottom of Queen Street, go through the containers,
Yeah.
and then walk along the wharf.
Yeah. Is there a particular reason you would kind of do that?
I feel safer down that way. I don't know, it's a lot safer for me to be walking down that way
Yeah.
than walking down the back streets.
However, police were still reviewing CCTV footage from the City Life Hotel. The footage showed Jesse and Grace arriving at the hotel arm in arm and exiting the lift together on his floor. Grace was never seen leaving the building again. The next morning, on Grace's birthday, cameras captured Jesse leaving the hotel, going shopping, and buying a suitcase. This disturbing footage helped fill in the gaps and painted a sinister picture. He then went to buy some cleaning supplies. Just before noon, he took a taxi to a car rental company and rented a red Toyota Corolla. Several hours later, Jesse met another woman he had connected with on Tinder. She later reported that their conversation took a disturbing turn, with Jesse talking about burying bodies and mentioning his friends in the police force. Feeling deeply uneasy, she declined his offer to get in his car and went home on her own, never speaking to him again. Following this, Jesse returned to the city center to hire a rug doctor carpet cleaning machine, explaining to the staff that he needed to clean up red wine stains. Later that evening, around 9:30 p.m., he loaded 2 suitcases onto a hotel trolley and transferred them to the Toyota he had rented earlier. The next day, at around 7 a.m., he was caught on camera buying a shovel. 2 hours later, he was seen power washing the car. He then returned the car to the rental company, which was subsequently rented out to another customer. On December 5th, the day Grace was reported missing, Jesse was observed visiting various locations and disposing of items in bins. When police arrived at the City Life Hotel to question him, Jesse walked in just as they reached the front desk. Upon spotting the police, he quickly turned around and began walking away, head firmly facing the opposite direction. The police noticed, chased after him, and brought him in for questioning. Despite Jesse's denials, the police conducted a thorough search of his hotel room. On December 7th, David, Grace's father, arrived in Auckland and made an emotional plea for help.
As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December. And as a family, we've been extremely concerned for her welfare. Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter. Grace has never been out of contact for this amount of time. She's usually in daily contact with either her mother, myself, her two brothers, members of the family on social media. I don't know if you know, but Grace is on a year-long worldwide overseas experience. Grace started this travel journey in Peru in South America, and at the end of this was really looking forward to the second leg in New Zealand. She arrived here on the 20th of November and has been bombarding us with numerous photographs and messages of her adventures. We're all extremely upset, and it's very difficult at this time to fully describe the range of emotions we are going through. While we are very grateful for the media coverage both here and back home, we are finding this situation quite upsetting, and would sincerely hope that the media continue to respect our privacy. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to anybody who has seen, spoken to, or come into contact with Grace over the last few days, and to come forward with any detail, no matter how small, and contact the investigation team. On
December 8th, with mounting evidence, Jesse was taken into custody and interviewed again. His story had drastically changed.
I went to the warehouse at the atrium and brought a suitcase. I went back and I was just in shock because it just didn't seem right. I left to go and get cleaning products. So I messaged a friend and said I'll meet you at Revelry. After finishing drinks with with her, I got back to city life. And the whole time I just kept saying, I'm sorry. And then I went downstairs and I grabbed the porter thing and I put the suitcase on top of the porter thing. I drove the hire car into Wilson's car park and parked it. I woke up the next day at about 5 a.m. and drove the car out to Cumu at first. I picked up a shovel from ITM at Cumu. I ended up driving towards the Waitakaries. I went into the bush, I dug a hole, I went and got the suitcase and I covered the hole. And then I drove.
Where is her possessions?
I threw them in the rubbish.
Whereabouts?
Albert Park rubbish.
Right. So what items of her property have been disposed of in Albert Park?
Everything.
All of her clothing?
Everything that was in the room.
Right. Whereabouts did you clean the car? The outside of the car?
I think it was in Henderson. I don't know West very well.
Okay. And what did you use to clean the car?
Water blaster thing from a car cleaning place.
Did she have any injuries?
Not that I can remember. I was just panicking.
Did you inflict any injuries on her that caused her to die?
No.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. And you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane on or about the 2nd of December.
Okay.
You understand?
Yep.
Did you intend to cause her death?
No.
Jesse claimed that when he awoke the next morning and realized Grace was dead, he went into shock. Panicking, he placed her body in a suitcase and drove out to bury her. He continued to deny any guilt. Based on Jesse's account, the police quickly focused their search on an area near the Waitakere Reservoir along Scenic Drive, shortly after 4 p.m. That day, officers discovered a body approximately 10 yards from the road.
We've had a scene examination underway here in the section of bush behind me. This area was identified late last night as a location of interest as a result of our investigative work. I can now advise that a short time ago we located a body which we believe to be Grace. The formal identification process will now take place. However, based on the evidence we have gathered over the past few days, we expect that this is Grace. Obviously, this brings the search for Grace to an end. It is an unbearable time for the Millane family, and our hearts go out to them. The investigation will continue for some time yet. The focus now is to piece together exactly what happened to a young girl who came to New Zealand on her OE. I'm releasing 2 photos of a 2016 red Toyota Corolla hatchback. This was hired from a Central Auckland rental car company. We need to hear from anybody who saw this car last Monday morning, the 3rd of December, between 6 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. in the West Auckland area. Anyone who saw this vehicle was asked to call us on 0800 676 255. Finally, I would like to thank the investigation team for their long hours of hard work over the past few days. We will be pleased to be giving Grace back to her family. There will just be a couple of quick questions.
What led you to the Waitakaries?
A whole lot of things within our investigative work that led us here last night.
Tom?
In the bush.
Tom Cheshire.
It was probably about 10 metres off the road.
Tom Cheshire, Sky News. Have you spoken to Grace's family?
Yes, we've advised her. Sorry, we've advised the family, the father, this afternoon.
When was
The car was hired on Sunday. Around just before lunchtime.
Inspector, what can you tell us about the condition of the body?
No, I'm not going to go into those details. I've just come from the scene here where we've just identified and seen the body. As I say, tomorrow there'll be formal identification, there'll be post-mortem examination.
Last questions, please.
That's, yeah, he was charged with murder last night.
And what can you tell us about the team that you have here? How many are involved in this operation?
So at the scene here today, we've had 18 staff, including experts, forensic experts.
Was this a premeditated murder?
I can't answer that.
Last question, please.
Yes, we found the car in Taupo. As I say, it is a rental car, and we're only looking for that day, the Monday, the 3rd, between 6 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. in the West Auckland area from Central
Can
City.
you tell us whether you came here as a result of some information from the public, or was it the man you had in custody that's been helping you?
No, through our investigation, that led us to this area.
Thank you, guys.
Pardon? I'm not going to go into details. He's now charged and before the court.
Thank you.
Thanks. No, I'm not going to speculate now because, as I say, a man has been charged and is before the court. Any father, any parent in this situation will struggle. Yeah, I feel for him. I have a daughter in her 20s. So, yeah, we're putting a lot of support around him. It's difficult because he's here with a brother from England and the rest of the family are back home. So our hearts go out to him.
Thank you, guys.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern publicly apologised to Grace's parents, offering her condolences and the country's full support.
Look, today I would like to start with a comment on the murder of Grace Millane, having received a number of media queries about this tragedy. Firstly, I cannot imagine the grief of her family and what they will be experiencing and feeling right now. And my thoughts and prayers are with her father, David, who is in the country, her mother, Gillian, who cannot be here, and her wider family, friends, and loved ones. You know, from the Kiwis I have spoken to, there is this overwhelming sense of hurt and shame that this has happened in our country, a place that prides itself on our hospitality, on our manaakitanga, especially to those who are visiting our shores. And so, on behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologise to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that. I've advised the family through the police that if there is anything we can do to assist, we are here to help with that.
An autopsy revealed that Grace had been strangled, with bruises on her arms and chest indicating she had been pinned down. The force required to strangle her would have necessitated sustained pressure on her neck for 4 to 5 minutes.
When I arrived there, the suitcase was still on the ground, so I observed the suitcase. Then I briefly left the scene while they did some further excavation. Then I came back and watched them actually remove the suitcase from the ground.
Just so that we're entirely clear, it was later confirmed that you were dealing with, in this post-mortem, Ms. Grace Millane.
Yes. And in this case there was an area of significant bruising, and it was on the left side of the neck, and it basically extended from the jaw down. If you look at your own neck, there's a very broad band of muscle which comes down the side of your neck called sternomastoid muscle. So the bruising was to the midline of that, or just over more towards the right. There has been sufficient pressure in that place for a sufficient period of time and for sufficient force for that bruising to occur. The bruising wouldn't occur, I don't think, with a sort of a gentle pressure on the neck. It has to be something a bit more forceful than that.
When you see a bruise, you can't tell whether something is the result of consensual activity or not.
A consensual bruise.
Well, the bruise doesn't tell you whether it's consensual, the result of consensual activity.
No,
or not.
all I can say is a bruise is there, and then give my opinion as to what I think the cause may have been.
And so again, if we have a grab in the context of consensual but physical, this bruise here could have been the result, and you simply can't tell whether that's a consensual bruise or not.
Well, both of those could be.
Are you agreeing with me?
Yes.
A forensic search of Jesse's hotel room revealed more disturbing details. Despite his attempts to clean up, Grace's blood was found on the floor.
In evaluating these DNA results, I've considered the following two propositions. Either the DNA present in this sample originated from Miss Millane, or this DNA originated from somebody selected at random from the New Zealand population. So following statistical analyses, it has been determined that the likelihood of obtaining these DNA results is at least 500,000 million, or 5 times 10 to the 11, times more likely if the DNA in the sample originated from Miss Millane rather than from another individual selected at random from the New Zealand population. These DNA profiling results provide extremely strong scientific support for the proposition that the DNA from the bloodstain originated from Miss Millane.
So, as can be seen in that photograph, were two roughly circular areas of probable blood staining between the bed and the utilities alcove and wardrobe. There were also some other general staining, including some possible footprints. So, in my opinion, the shape of the probable blood staining and the presence of blood and other residues in the underlay and the floor provide strong support for the proposition that clean-up of blood had occurred in this area. But I was unable to offer any opinion as to the age of the blood staining and cleaning.
Over a month after Grace's body was found, hundreds attended her funeral at Brentwood Cathedral in Essex. Detective Inspector Scott Beard, who had led the case, flew to England to pay his respects and support the Millane family. 6 days after the funeral, Jesse appeared in the High Court and pled not guilty. The trial lasted 3 weeks, during which Jesse remained largely emotionless, occasionally glancing at court papers or holding his head in his hands. Jesse's defense team argued that Grace's death was a tragic accident resulting from consensual rough gone horribly wrong. They claimed that Grace had previously engaged in similar encounters and that this incident was a tragic case of misadventure. They asserted that Jesse had panicked and attempted to conceal Grace's body after realizing the encounter had accidentally led to her death.
The defence says to you, members of the jury, this is not a murder, but an accident that occurred during consensual activity as part of casual between two people who were intoxicated. It developed into activities that can carry some risk if not done properly. But I say to you this, the issue is that the post-death conduct is unlikely to tell you much about the earlier circumstances of her death, and much less still about what Mr. was thinking and trying to do when the death occurred. Mr. accepts that his actions did cause Ms. Millane's death. However, the defence raises an issue about the role that alcohol and intoxication may have played in that death. The defence says that these actions were part of activities that they were doing together and were in no way intended to cause any harm to her. This is not a murder. The post-death conduct is unlikely to help you much, members of the jury, in determining the critical issue of what Mr. was thinking when he put his hands around Ms. Millane's throat that night. That is because those actions, now accepted and regretted, are consistent with panic as anything else.
The prosecution presented a compelling case, armed with a substantial amount of strong evidence and testimony from witnesses. They contended that Jesse's actions were neither a result of panic nor a mere accident. Instead, they argued that his actions were deliberate and calculated. The prosecution described his attempts to cover his tracks as a labyrinth of storytelling and lies meticulously crafted to mislead investigators.
A Saturday night in December last year, Grace Millane went back with the defendant to his apartment. She died there. A couple of days later, the defendant buried her body on Scenic Drive out in the Waitakeris. None of this is in dispute. What is in dispute is how she died. And that's what you're here to consider. But of course it's what happened inside the room that counts. He put sustained pressure on her neck, to the point where blood was coming from her nose. In the early hours of that morning, before the trip out to the Waitakere Ranges to bury Ms. Millane, Mr. has searched pornographic websites, he's taken photos of Ms. Millane's, he's flipped back to watching more pornography, he's confirmed a date with another woman, he's gone shopping for a suitcase and the necessary cleaning products, and he's attempted to clean up the mess in his apartment and gone back to the supermarket for a rug doctor so he could complete the task. And of course he's put Ms. Millane's body in a suitcase.
Some punga trees all the way around, it's native bush, and to me it looked like they'd been broken off and placed on top of an area, and they were piled on there haphazardly. The soil was excavated from the scene. You can see the back of the base structure of that suitcase.
At that point, pathologist Dr. Simon Stables arrived and briefly examined the suitcase.
How did Dr. Stables briefly examine that suitcase?
He opened it up and had a look inside, and he confirmed that there were human remains inside the suitcase.
Did you observe that yourself, or was that not apparent to you?
I saw part of it, yes.
On December 22nd, 2019, Jesse Kempson was found guilty of Grace Millane's murder after just 5 hours of jury deliberation. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years.
Members of the jury, have you reached the unanimous verdict? That is one on which all 12 of you agree on the charge of murder. We have. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
This jury, having found you guilty of the murder of Grace Emmy Rose Millane, you are convicted.
This will be with us for the rest of our lives. Grace was a beautiful, talented, loving daughter. Grace was our sunshine, and she will be missed forever. Finally, we must return home, try and pick up the pieces of our lives, and day to day without our beloved Grace.
Following this highly publicized trial, Jesse faced 2 additional trials the next year. 2 women had come forward after recognizing Jesse from the blurred images released after his arrest for Grace's murder. One of the women said that Jesse had held knives to her throat, choked her, forced her into sex, and drained her bank account of $10,000. He was found guilty on 8 charges and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. The second woman is a young British tourist who he met on Tinder 8 months before Grace's murder. He raped her, forcing her that he would kill her and her family if she didn't have with him. He was found guilty and sentenced to an additional 3.5 years in prison. This brought his total sentence to an additional 11 years, which will run concurrently with his life sentence for Grace's murder.